All right, welcome back to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. I'm here with Dan today. Told you all we had a special guest. We had a special episode going on today. He is, as some of you may be aware, the Bleacher Report community captain. So we got him in the
Thanks for having
house.
me on, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
We've been friends for a few months, and then it's finally cool to actually link up and talk
yeah,
Giants with you.
yeah. I appreciate it. I definitely want to do more stuff like this. Get more people in so people can hear different voices than me just droning on for 15 to 20 minutes or whatever it is. And it's a little more fun doing it in this format. So
Yeah,
just kind of start off. We've Giants dropped their game yesterday, 8-2 to the Mets. They're now 4-3 on the homestand, 12-14 on the season. So we're 26 games into the season. They're 3 games back of the Dodgers, who are sitting at 15-11, which disappointing for them, but there's still a couple games up in the division on everybody. It seems like there's a lot of it's pretty crowded in that 2 through 4 spot. So I'm going to start off asking Dan kind of what his thoughts are on Giants kind of to this point in the season and, what he's seen, what his opinions are. So I'll just kick it on off to him.
yeah. I mean, like you said, it's surprising that the West is so close right now, with LA only having a 3-game lead. I feel like going into the season, a lot of fans expected that gap to be higher, but at the same time, I feel like none of the big four in the West, excluding Colorado, obviously, but the big four in the West have kind of lived up to their potential per se, including us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's been a first month full of ups and downs for the Giants. It seems like starting pitching is the strong suit, and then offense weak link, and then one day it'll be an offensive explosion, and then the bullpen lets it down. So to me, it's all about finding consistency in all three:
Mm-hmm.
starting pitching, bullpen, and offense, and of course defense. But I feel like it's just finding that groove, and I'm hoping that that's something that they're able to do, as the season progresses.
Yeah. I feel like they play kind of a lot of sloppy baseball at times. They don't
That's
do the little things well a lot
That's
of times.
the best way that I can explain it as well. Sloppy baseball is
Yeah.
probably sums up the first season because there'll be routine plays where you expect them to make on defense and it just kind of skims right past them. The next thing you know, 2-run shot.
Yeah.
You're getting into the game, you're grinding, getting a run or two on the board, and then boom, bullpen gives up a 3-run jack, and those
Yep.
little mistakes prove costly in the long run. So it's you just got to clean up
Yeah.
those little things, which I don't think they've done so far. But long season ahead.
Yeah, I feel like in some respects, you look at this team compared to 2023, and there's a lot of little things they do better. The defense, especially infield defense, seems a lot cleaner. I
Bro,
think even the outfield with Lee out there, I know he's not like as elite as people think you might have thought he might have been, but some of that could be adjusting to playing outdoors. But
can I just say Matt Chapman is a vacuum. Like, say
oh
what you
my
want
god,
about his bat. Like, what he's got
100%.
4 home runs, 10 RBIs, something like that. He's
Mhm.
batting in the low 220 range. Say what you want about his bat. You know what you're going to get with Matt Chapman's bat. His glove and his arm is automatic. It seems like if it's a routine ground ball,
Yeah.
if he's going to his left, to his right, the throw is going to be on the money.
What you just said about the throwing has been my biggest takeaway from Chapman. I swear, I mean, whether it's Wade or Flores over there, I kind of we'll call it the broadcaster jinxed him the other day where he actually threw it away, but it was like a horrible grip way off line. He was like running to his side. But watching Chapman play, like every throw, it's not even like, oh, it's a good throw. Like Crawford used to have a lot of good throws where Belt was kind of stretched out and whatnot. He hits them right in the like right in the
Right in the
letters,
chest.
like
Yeah.
right in front. Like Bill
Yeah.
Walsh would be proud. It's like 1 foot right in front of the numbers
Yeah.
every time.
It's the consistency that impresses me. So that's why when everyone, you'll have people that are going and saying, "Oh, Chapman was a waste of a signing." It's like, do you know how crucial that is to give?
Mhm.
First off, Wilmer and Wade aren't natural first basemen. They've
No.
played different positions. They came up in different positions. Wade came up as an outfielder. Wilmer actually came up as a shortstop. So it's like the fact that you're having that duo platoon at first base, those consistent throws at third, especially with ground ball pitchers, which our starting pitchers excel at, that's so crucial and so key. And I actually got a fun little fact here for you. So the MLB average this season for ground ball rates is 43.1%. Wynn has a 58.95% ground ball rate. Hicks has a 56.6%, and Webb has a 56.4% rate. So
That's down for Webb too.
It is down for Webb, but just the fact that that's what 10, 15 points above average in the league. That's when your infield defense is so crucial, and that's why Matt Chapman is such a huge signing.
Yeah. And that's where, I mean, I know we all kind of have our thoughts on, and you know, I'm going to give Ahmed some credit. His bat so far in 3-4 weeks or whatever the season has been much better than I think any of us really anticipated. I don't think it's going to maintain. He's got too much of a track record of being what he is, but at least, you know, I can live if you're going to be a 15 to 20% worse than league average hitter, but you're like money with runners in scoring position. I will live with that. And so far Ahmed's been really solid in those situations, but you know, his glove too. Yeah. His glove's been really good too. Tyro yesterday, I mean, yeah, they ended up losing, but early in the game when it was still tight, made some really big plays that was keeping them in the game, or could have been what kept them in the game. So especially second through third right now, their defense is excellent. And then in the outfield, it's definitely improved. I don't know if it's necessarily good. You know, Conforto, I don't think it's like an effort thing. He made a nice diving play yesterday, but Conforto, it's like, he just looks like he's moving in slow motion sometimes, even though like, I'm sure he's hustling. Like, I don't see him as a kind of guy that's like dogging it out there, but he kind of is what he is defensively. And Yaz is really good and right, but Lee is, I don't have the exact number, but I saw the statistic where they were talking about like the first step range, and Lee was like, a foot, like 1.7 feet or something like that above average on his first step, like faster. And guys like Matos and Yaz were like less, below average on those first steps. So they're getting more balls.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest thing with Lee as well is like, yes, his nickname is Grandson of the Wind, but he's not going to blow you away with his quickness or his speed per se. Where he has the dynamic athleticism and speed wise is, like you said, his first step instinct is good. His range is great. He's not one that's going to blow you away with initial quickness, but as he gets a sprint going, he's going to catch up to the majority of the fly balls that are over in center field and right center field, especially at Oracle. And that's one of the biggest things with him. And as you mentioned with Yaz, you know what you're going to get with Yaz. He's going to be a consistent above average glove and right. And my opinion on, the Slaz duo over and right. But right there, I got to give respect where it's due with Yastrzemski. And he's going to give you a good glove. And Conforto, he's going to be an average to below average defender. He's not the fastest guy. But one thing that I did point out yesterday, that diving catch that he made, I don't think he attempts that last year. And the reason why is, if you notice when he laid out for it, he rolled on that surgically repaired shoulder, which nobody pointed that out. He rolled.
I didn't even know it was that shoulder, to be honest. I would not have known that.
Exactly. So he rolled onto that to take, the brunt of the impact, and he popped up and has the confidence. That's the biggest thing with Conforto between last year and this year. It's the confidence in that rebuilt shoulder, which I think has made an impact not only defensively with plays like that and attempts like that, but offensively as well. And I think the numbers are showing.
Yeah. And the offensive potential, we'll say, with Conforto, that was kind of the one reason where, I mean, you and I know you've kind of been on the same spot as me. I've been in the camp of like, I want to see one of these young guys playing in the corners. And for most of the offseason, I was like, okay, we need to move some guys. And now I never in a million years thought Haniger would be the guy that got traded. Good for getting that guy off. But like, I thought I wanted, it was kind of, do you move off the platoon and right that's been, relatively consistent with their overall production for a couple of years? or do you move like try and attempt dumping a guy like Conforto? And I always felt like, Conforto's offensive potential is still there. Like if he just gets healthier and, he's showing it. His average is going to come down a little bit. I mean, he's never going to be a 290, 300 hitter, but the pop is there. I mean, he's hit 5 homers so far. He's on pace for 30.
And
we'll see if he does it. But
I think that's why Farhan gave him that contract to begin with, was the offensive potential. Because you saw it when he was with New York. He 30 plus home runs with ease, it seemed like. And I think this season, if he maintains his health, I can easily see a 240, 250 average with 25 to 29-ish home run range with 70 to 80 RBIs. I can see that potential. If you're getting that out of your everyday left fielder, like, I mean, we'll take that all day.
Yeah. It'll just end up being interesting if in the offseason they try and resign him if he does that.
I think there's
what kind of deal?
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made this upcoming offseason. I know that's 7 months away, so you got to look long down the road. But it's like a lot of contracts are expiring. There's a lot of options that are going to be on the table to either renew them or decline them, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because I mean everyone's been pointing it out and. Giants social media and Giants communities, Giants Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Ramos is knocking on the door, man, and Slater is not giving himself, he's not showing that fight that he wants to keep that position on the team. And Ramos is knocking on his door.
Slater getting picked off yesterday, standing up in second base. I wanted to throw. I had the game on my iPad, and I legitimately wanted to chuck the iPad into the wall when I saw that. I'm like, how are you an 8-year veteran and you go back into a bag standing up?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I don't.
I can't even say that's a rookie mistake. That's like a little league mistake. Like, what are you doing?
That's just I don't know about all that, man. But
so
that leads me into some topics that some guys were commenting on in the Bleacher Report community. And Ricky, shouts out Ricky C415, he pointed out, which minor leaguers do you see most likely being key contributors by the end of the season or taking over starting roles, if any? So what are your thoughts on
that? So, barring injuries, because I you never know if a guy like Ahmed, who's had history of injuries, Conforto, either of the Slaz guys, there's a lot of guys that have like that injury history. And heck, Tyro, I didn't actually see what the injury was, but I heard he had kind of strained something. Hamstring. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So, he might go on the 15-day IL, but I don't really count that as a, taking over. Barring injuries, there's really only a few guys that I think could potentially like take an everyday job. I think there's a few guys that could take some roles. Mainly like Elliot Ramos, I could see taking Slater's role. And maybe they give him more at bats than they're currently giving Slater. And maybe he can play his way into a bigger role if he just comes up and crushes like he's been doing in AAA. I think if an everyday role opens up, as long as he gets going in AAA a little bit more, I think Luis Matos would be probably the more likely guy to get an everyday shot between the two. And in the infield, Luciano is the guy that everyone talks about. And watching him down in SAC, there's a lot of things. I kind of brought it up on my last show where there's a lot of things he does really well. And I see like he's still an exciting prospect. Like I'm not looking down on him as a prospect in any way here. But there's some things, especially with his approach, that I would like to see change. He is, for as much talent as he has with the bat, he is far too passive. And that kind of drives me insane. And with the glove being a little shakier, I don't know if he would be a guy they would trust. So I don't necessarily think he would be the guy that gets a shot, especially when the next guy I'm going to mention, Casey Schmidt, is doing what he's doing. And I've been kind of sour on Schmidt as a shortstop, but I have to say, watching him in SAC, because I've watched almost every game down there. I mean, sometimes I'm flipping back and forth, but he looks really good at short. He's made a couple really like kind of wow plays. We were kind of talking yesterday about like defensively what he would bring versus Ahmed. And I think I think it's clear Ahmed's a more natural shortstop. So like he plays the position a little more naturally. He's probably got a tiny bit better range. I don't know about like if he's more sure-handed or anything, but I just think like the footwork, all that stuff is probably going to be cleaner with Ahmed. But there's no question that Schmidt has a better and more accurate arm, like 100%. In every respect. So, and we've seen Ahmed's arm, pull Wade or Flores off the bag a few times. He made that throw on a cutoff where he, all he had to do was get it in the vicinity of home plate and it would have been an out, and he got it in like the wrong zip code. Like it was real bad. So there's things that Schmidt could bring. So, a lot of this hinges on guys on the roster kind of falling on their face or, potentially an injury. But I think Ramos is the one guy that could play his way into a role. And then the other guy, and I know you're not a huge fan of his, but the other guy that I could see playing his way into at least an opportunity in like a reserve role would be Brett Wisely. Yeah. And that's just because, Tyler Fitzgerald, he hits a home run yesterday. He's stolen 4 bags, I think, on the season so far. He's doing some things nice. He actually, it's funny for a guy that came up as a shortstop. He looks better in the outfield than he does in short or in the infield. But he's made 4 errors in limited time that he's played. And it's like, dude, if you're going to be a super utility guy, you can't be like kicking balls left and right. And Wisely, for all of his faults for how he played last season and just into his defense, like he clearly wasn't ready and they pulled him up early. He is really good defensively, especially up the middle. And particularly at second, I think short, he's at least average, but particularly at second and probably in center field, like he's a really solid defender. And if they decided, if Fitzgerald wasn't cutting it and continues to just keep kicking balls, like I could see Wisely getting a shot. And he's been an on-base machine. I mean, he's getting on base like at a 450 clip right now in sack, and he's got speed. So, I mean, if he could just put the ball in play, like he's got some intriguing tools. I don't think he's ever going to be a great everyday player, but that's who I see, at least from a position player standpoint.
Yeah, so. I can agree. I agree with those. I think a lot of it, like you said, is dependent on injuries. But I mean, those that know me know that my ideal outfield would consist of, Conforto, Lee, and then in right field, if you want to stick with Yaz, go for it. I see Yaz more as a 4th outfielder, but I genuinely just think that at this point in time, Ramos deserves Slater's role. Yeah. And I think he would be a lot more effective and a lot more exciting than, Billy Goat over there. So,
hey, he's prepping himself for Mustache, May or whatever.
Mustache May, yeah, he's okay, whatever.
I think. I was just gonna say with Ramos, one last thing people forget. I mean, a lot of people act like he's like 28 and he's 24, but one last thing regarding Ramos is, and I've mentioned this on my stuff, but like he is on his last option year. Like we are going to be in the Bart situation with even less of an evaluation than Joey Bart ever had. But like we're going to end up in this situation where they're going to end up having to go sign some guys, and then they're going to go decide, oh, well, we feel more comfortable in what these guys bring because we've seen it at the major league level. And it's like, well, whose fault is that? Like,
and I think I think you pointed out a stat to me about how many at-bats he's had since he was called up to the big league level. What was it like? It was like 80, 90 at-bats and
82 in 6 call-ups. And I only counted the call-ups where he spent more. Like I did not count, he's the 27th or 28th man on a doubleheader. I didn't count those even. Like I gave him those at-bats, but I didn't count them. Like it was 6 call-ups.
It's insane.
Spent more than a day.
It's insane. You can't get a good look at somebody with 82 call-ups or 82 at-bats and 6 call-ups. Like it's just impossible to get a valid, look at the guy. And I think he deserves a shot.
Yeah. Even in Slater's role, if he's playing 10 at-bats a week or whatever, but you keep him up for 2 or 3 months. Like
exactly.
I can live with that. Like at the end of the day, like he's got so much experience in AAA that he's not a guy that I look at as, a lot of the saying that always comes out is, they need to play every day or you just keep him down there. And I'm like, dude, this guy, I mean, he's 24. So yeah, he's kind of younger, but like he has 1100 at bats almost in AAA.
Yeah.
And then however many plate appearances, it's more than that, but it's like, he's got 1100 like official at bats in AAA. Like at some point, like you just got to bring him up and see if he can be a major leaguer.
Yeah, I agree. And going off or, looking down in Sacramento, one guy that I think deserves a shot, especially right now, given Blake Snell's injuries, Mason Black.
100%.
I don't want to see them roll out no Sean Jelly to start a bullpen game. I think Mason Black, with how he's performing down there, he deserves a legit shot with Snell being on the IL for at least, next 15 days.
Yeah, and I think who asked about the
that was Arson Judge.
Arson.
He pointed that out. Shouts out Arson. Yeah, he brought up Snell. That is probably the best name in the community. But no, he makes a valid point though. He says hard to imagine they continue to do bullpen games with how it's looked, especially on the back end in terms of their quote unquote bottom bullpen arms. And I agree. I think Mason Black deserves a true opportunity.
Yeah, I think the style in which he pitches, he's got that kind of, he throws kind of the sinker. He has the fastball that he'll pitch up in the zone. He has kind of a weird thing where he's out of the stretch. He gets kind of knocked around a little bit. At least last year he was. I'd have to look at his like with runners on splits this season. But he's pitched out of a lot of jams. So I would say it's actually improved this season just from my eye test without the numbers to back me up here. But, he's a strike thrower. Like he lives down in the zone with downward movement. And it's like, yeah, he gives up. Sometimes he throws one up and the guy hits it pretty far, but it's like, this is the perfect park for him. Like you have a great infield defense. You got a big spacious outfield. I mean, it's as soft of a landing spot as possible. And a day like yesterday where, the Mets have some big, guys like Lindor, even though he's off to a slow start, but guys like Lindor and Alonso and Nimmo, and yes, it's Nimmo, not Nemo. For those that were watching the games all weekend, it drives me insane. But they have some really good hitters in that lineup, but this would have been a good day for it because it would have been a good opportunity for him to get out there and pitch in Oracle Park with that defense behind him, just in my opinion. And to me, the mistake that Farhan made was not putting him on the 40-man instead of Dalton Jeffries earlier in the year because
I don't understand that at all.
They rewarded Jeffries for a good spring, and I don't know if it was like a service clock thing or whatever excuse they want to make, but I think that he could have made that start. He could have even been in the pen for part of the year if they wanted to, they dumped Jeffries and had Tang up for a while, but he could have been the guy this time where he comes in, makes 2 or 3 starts, and he still would have had 3 more call-ups. Like he could have been the guy that they brought up and down 3 or 4 or 5 times or whatever. I mean, you only get 5, but he could have been that guy, and he could have at the end of the year had, maybe 10 to 12 starts. And I bet you he would have given us better returns than these opener games and Dalton Jeffries and, insert random name here.
that whole Dalton Jeffries move, I get it. They had a solid spring. They wanted to reward him. But looking back now, here we are coming up on the end of April. And you look at that decision that Farhan made by keeping 3 catchers on the roster with Patrick Bailey, Tom Murphy, and Joey Bart, just to 3 days later trade Bart to the Pirates for a low-end reliever and then bring up Jeffries, which obviously that flopped and blew up in the face. And then you look at Tom Murphy's numbers. He's batting .074. No home runs. And mind you, this is power hitting catcher Tom Murphy. No home runs. He's got a .305 OPS, and Stat Savant literally has his metrics near or at the bottom in every single category for catchers, whether it's defensively or offensively. The only things that he's above average at is sweet spot, chase, and walk percentages, which that's whatever. But you look at everything else across the board, and it's like, yes, Tom Murphy had a couple decent offensive seasons. If you look at
Yeah.
his career, a majority of them he's played like
Hey, he's one
30,
of the
40
top hitting
games.
catchers in baseball.
Yeah, McCovey Chronicles, if you're watching this, you're a clown, bro. Like, how are you going to say he's one of the top hitting catchers the last 5 years? Like, I mean, what? Because he hit 18 home runs back in 2019. Like, let's be
Yeah.
real, dude.
I,
I don't know, dude, but it's just that's one of the decisions where now we gave or Farhan gave him what, a 2 year, 3 year contract, 8 mil. So
yeah,
he
two
was
and an option. I don't
yeah,
even know if
two
it's
and
a
an
player
option.
option or a team. I hope it's a team because good God, get this guy off my team. But
I would like to see Jackson Reitz.
I would
Like
rather
just
see Jackson Reese than Murphy. And I don't even like I haven't seen much negative play defensively out of Reeds.
no,
So
and with Murphy, we saw in spring he was testing his arm to see if he can throw runners out, and I saw 5 of them sail into center field. And
he's
now it's
like
gotten to the
scared.
point where no, well, I was just going to say now it gets to the point where you see runners take off, he won't even attempt to throw.
Yeah. He drops it.
Yeah,
You can't look bad throwing if you just don't throw.
what's that meme?
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
like, oh, the exchange went poorly. My bad.
yeah. It's
Like,
just, and I'll give
it,
my I'll give my flowers to Patrick Bailey. He looked awful in the spring, and he looked awful towards the end of last season. I will give him credit where it's due. The last 10 days, he has turned it up offensively and defensively. Towards the beginning of the season, when he was throwing at runners, he was throwing splitters and changeups that were
mm-hmm.
one
Oh yeah,
hopping Ahmed at short,
they
or
were
it's
nasty.
bad. Yeah, he was off with his arm. His bat was just not there. But lately, I don't know what it is. He's turned it up, and he's been a pleasant surprise
Yeah.
as of late.
Yeah, the defense is what I care about. Like, I think you know my feelings on that. Like, the bat is gonna, as long as it's a playable bat, and that's all
Yeah,
I've ever maintained. I'm like, you can't go up there and produce under Mad Bum's career numbers, which is what he did for like 3 months last season. Like, you can't have like a 150 average and a 450 OPS. Like, that's not acceptable to be an everyday player, but as long as he's giving us like a 600 plus OPS, like 650 is kind of what I'm hoping, and like 220 average. Like, if you're playing a Gold Glove caliber defense, you might not win it. Posey was a Gold Glove caliber catcher for years, but unfortunately for him, he played in the same league as Yadier Molina for most of his
yeah,
career. So it's like, if he's playing Gold Glove caliber defense, I can live with a subpar bat. And
of course.
the last week or two, whatever it's been, like, I'm not seeing as many go back to the backstop. I'm not seeing him throwing balls into center field. Like, that's the stuff, the framing metrics, whatever they want to look at those. He looks fine. I mean, I don't care as much about it. A lot of people do, and I understand the reasoning. I think it's a stat that's going to really go or become irrelevant in a year or two, um,
Agreed.
as we've talked about. But I
Especially with
just, the little things that he's doing much better. Now, I will say, on top of those little things, there is one that he needs to fix, and that's stop leaving your damn throwing hand exposed. I've never seen a catcher that does it so much. And it's like,
yeah,
Joey Bart is not coming back, guys. And if he breaks his hand and we are left with Tom Murphy and Blake Sable as our catching group, I might want to gouge my eyes out, because that might be the worst defensive catching group in the history of Major League Baseball. Like,
and it's not close. It would absolutely be.
I would have to do some serious research to see if I could find one worse defensively. And I don't know if they had enough metrics back in the day to figure that out. So
Yeah, and I mean, I made a joke, quote unquote, but I wasn't joking when I said that we paid. Okay, we in terms of the Giants, the
yeah,
Giants paid $8 million to downgrade a backup catcher, and I don't think that's a
yeah,
stretch. We all, we it was painful to watch Blake Sable at times last year, and he hasn't done that much in Sacramento so far this season, but the upside that he had and that he showed last year is above anything that Tom Murphy has shown this year.
yeah. Especially behind the plate. Like, Sable
Yeah,
could throw the ball decently when he caught
yeah,
it.
of
Like,
course.
and when he kept it in front of him, like, he could throw the ball decently. I see
Yeah,
it down in sack. Now, he still commits a lot of the similar like pass balls. I mean, last season I made the comment that Blake Sable is the worst blocking catcher, like guy blocking balls in the dirt, that I've ever seen in my life in professional ball. I stand
That
by
was
that. Still terrible
yes.
down there. I can tell all the people right now watching Sacramento games, he's still terrible blocking balls. But his arm like leaves Murphy in the dust. Like it's there would at least be a semblance of controlling the running game with Sable back
Yeah.
there. It's
Yeah.
and I think we all expect Murphy's bat at some point to get going. Like none of us are going to sit here and say like this guy's going to hit under, he's going to bat a bingo number all season. Like none of us are going to say that, but it doesn't change the fact. And the tweet we were referring to, it's like it doesn't change the fact that he can't defend, and
Yeah.
that to me is more important in a backup catcher is the defense. And people can
Absolutely.
have their opinions on Joey Bart, but he would have been a way better backup catcher because he can actually play defense.
I mean, Pirates fans are loving Joey, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him. Hope he thrives over there. But
I hope he crushes it. Hopefully not this weekend or this week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the ovation that he gets this upcoming series. I wonder how they're gonna respond to him.
I think there's people like you and me that appreciate Joey Bart and the stuff he went through. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say like he's without fault. Like, he's obviously it comes down to the player at the end of the day, and he didn't do enough to really deserve like a starting job or anything like that. But like the team jerked him around. They messed with his swing in the minors. He had some unreasonable expectations by the fans. It's unfortunate. And, change of scenery might be doing him well now. And I don't know.
I made a joke yesterday or the day before, but keep Casey Schmidt as far away from Justin Veal as possible. Because same thing, man. I'm tired of that guy. But you see it in the minor leagues right now. You see Casey Schmidt's got a great swing going on. You see in Pittsburgh, Joey Bart, he's got a much more confident approach and a much better swing going on. You see when these guys are getting away from Justin Veal, their approach is better, their swing is better. The Giants' approach at the bat, or when they're at bat, and they just watch them go right down the middle. 2-0 count, fastball right down the middle.
So many.
And that's what people don't understand. It's the Justin Veal mythology, like how he's programmed and how he educates his players are work the count, work the count, work the count.
Yeah.
And he would much rather you draw a walk than you swing at a 95-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle.
Yeah.
And that's just how he works. And the fact that, you got fans that are blaming Pat Burrell, and that blows my mind because it's not an issue that's been going on for 3 months. It's an issue that's been going on for 3 years.
Yeah.
And Pat's just become a coach. And you got Pedro Guerrero, who's the assistant, and you got, Veal and Pat, who are the hitting coaches. But there's a reason that Pat was brought on, and this is the reason.
Yeah. I mean, and you listen to a guy like Burrell talk before the season where he's sitting there saying things like batting average matters. And when you get a good pitch to hit, you should be smoking it. And it's like what they're doing and what Burrell says are so conflicting. Like he's trying to undo something that's years in the making, like you said. And it's not that simple because this is what happens. And now you get guys like, Luciano down in Sacramento, who had a reputation of being kind of a free swinger and a little bit overly aggressive. And now he's like out there trying to draw walks. And it's like, guys, we're making guys think way too much instead 100%. Of using their natural talent. Like, sure, a guy like Luis Matos has kind of held on to that controlling the zone much better than some guys. Casey Schmidt, we want him to be a little less Casey Schmidt and, not be swinging at everything out of the zone and every pitch that comes out of the guy's hand, regardless of location. But we can't expect some of these guys to turn into these 10 to 15% walk guys. Like if Casey Schmidt walks 6% of the time, but at least can show a decent enough eye to get pitchers to come into the zone where he's got elite contact rates on pitches in the zone, then I'm cool with that because he can hit. When guys bring it in, and right now, I shared one of the videos in the community the other day and also on Twitter or X, but I shared one where he hit his triple and a double in the game. And I mean, obviously he's on like an all-timer tear. Like the fact that he has like 21 RBIs in 9 days, like that's like
Yeah,
things like Will Clark used to do. I mean, yeah, it's Sacramento, so whatever, take it for a grain of salt. But like that's like carrying your offense, like getting opportunities and coming through repeatedly in the
yeah.
opportunities. But he
I don't
looks
think.
so balanced. I mean, it looks like he's hitting it off a tee. Like the swing where he's just
Absolutely.
kind of got that little lean back, he just hits and he just kind of like he just poses off the swing, and it's like this looks like a guy hitting it off a tee in warmups. Like,
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to crack a joke where you said he's got 21 RBIs thus far this season. I don't think Austin Slater will have 21 RBIs all season, just for what it's worth.
nope.
Nope.
He might have 21 GIDPs though if they play him all year.
Shoot, he's already got half of that.
Hey, I made the joke. I said, what day will he have more hits than ground into double plays? It is April 25th. He finally tied it yesterday. So
Man, I'm so proud of the guy.
I know. We'll see. Does he make it to May? Can he do it before May?
That's better than
Austin.
That's better than Mookie. He's better than Mookie, right?
Yep. Oh God. All right. Well, we'll segue that into which players so far for the Giants have been kind of your biggest surprises on the season?
I'd say the one that stands out most is Lamont Wade, and that's a big surprise for me. He's got a WRC plus of 181, which is
kind of good.
It's kind of
good.
I mean,
it ranks one home run, I think.
Yeah, I mean that ranks 12th in the league with players that have at least 50 at bats. But I mean, just in general, he's had quality at bats. He's getting on base, and that's at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for. I think he's been one of the bigger surprises offensively. Now, the question is, can he maintain that consistently throughout the year? I'm not that confident. We've seen him go through stretches like this before.
Yeah, I think he can be a very valuable player and a good, especially offensively, like throughout the season. I don't think what he's doing this second is sustainable at all. And I'm going to get a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people that love Lamont Wade and they're going to come after me, but hear me out. He's hitting like 520 or 525 or something like that on his batting average on balls in play. And then you look at guys that have produced similar numbers to him to this point. Most of their batting average on balls in play is down in the like sub 400 range. Like if it was down, if his batting average on balls in play was sitting in the like, 400 or 410 or something, I'd be like, yeah, this is probably pretty sustainable. Like maybe it'll dip a tiny bit, but like it's relative. Like no, 525, like you're not going to do that for an entire season. So there's going to be some regression. Now, how much, who knows? Like you said, he's gone through these stretches, but I do think he can be a valuable player. And, we joke about the platoons and everything. And the flayed platoon is far from my biggest issue with this team. Like we can make jokes all we want, but like Flores needs to step it up a little bit. He's had like zero power production so far. But
I think he's batting around like 220 right now as well.
Yeah, it's early. I mean, Flores is what he is. Like he's going to get 350 at bats and he's usually going to hit decently and have a near 800 OPS at the end of the year. Yeah. And you're going to go, all right. And in his role, he's fine. He's a solid player. I think if you give him too much though, he gets exposed.
Yeah. And people that know me know that I love to crack my jokes about Wilmer Flores last year. I mean, if he had a little bit more drip, if he, wasn't coming out to the Friends theme song, maybe I would have opened up to him more last year. But no, like you said, he's a solid player. He's a solid role player. He does his job well, and that's all that you can ask for. But yeah, I mean, I think Wade has been one of the more surprising players thus far this season. And also Jordan Hicks, man. I think going into the season, especially after we signed him, there was like, 4 years, $44 million. There was a lot of questions. Like, you're going to turn a, late inning reliever / closer into a starting pitcher. How is that going to work? And I pointed out in the beginning of this conversation, his ground ball rate has been excellent. His velocity has been a little bit lower than what he's used to, but that's also because he's in a starting position role and not a reliever role. But it's still one of the highest in the league. I think Jordan Hicks has been a pleasant surprise. And I think if you have a player like Jordan Hicks as your 4 or 5 starter in your rotation, that's a good rotation to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. and he's producing right now like a 2 or 3. Honestly, like it's I did a whole, Jordan Hicks video and kind of broke down like the different movement that he's producing right now, and the ground ball rates and all that kind of stuff. And it's like there's less swing and miss, but he's getting guys to just chop it into the ground, which is awesome. And it's I do think that I still worry about how's his arm going to hold up over the whole season, but I do think like watching how he like getting to get my eyes on it and like watch him pitch day in and day out. Like I think it's sustainable, like the way his style of pitching, even though he's not. Yeah. Now teams are going to adjust. We saw the Marlins do it in particular. The game against Arizona, he more just was kind of all over the place. Didn't get any help from Stu Sherwater in that game at all. But I mean, he hit 2 dudes and walked like 4 more, and he was all over. But like the Marlins, I think kind of brought the blueprint where it was like, okay, let's stop just chasing this first pitch sinker because we think 96 down the middle is the best we're going to get ever. And they were working the count on him, and it created a bunch of opportunities that big inning they had. And, we'll see how it maintains because, he's not necessarily a strike thrower all the time. He's got a little Nuke Lelouch in him, particularly in that game against Washington where he missed the dude, went through like 4 feet behind the guy. But yeah, that reminded me of like when Kruko talks about like Randy Johnson, or someone like that would be warming up, and then the last pitch he would just throw into the backstop on purpose and be like, yeah, cool, now come get comfortable in the box. Like
for sure. No, for sure.
Yeah,
he's in a pleasant surprise though.
Yeah,
and
he's probably been my biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been great. And I think, discussing that topic goes into probably the last question that I had for you was looking into, July and the trade deadline. At this point in time, what do you see the Giants doing at the deadline, assuming that they're in contention for a playoff spot? And shouts out Ricky for that question as well, because I was going to say the same thing. I got my opinion. I just want to know yours.
Yeah. The first question or the first thing for that would be, what's out there. And none of us know right now. Like there's names that we might think could be available. Guy like Pete Alonso could end up available. I like Alonso. I don't think he actually would end up. They'd make that move just with what they currently have, because they can't DH him with Soler, and then Wade has been productive, and unless they're going to kick him to the corner out, there's just so many moving parts for a guy like him. But it's hard because I think they like a lot of the current pieces. The big name that I have in mind that I could see would be like a Luis Robert Jr.
That's a dream, man. That is a dream.
I think if they're going to make a move, unless there's an injury and they end up in a spot like last season where they got young players kind of playing at different spots and they're like keeping above water, and they're like, okay, we've got Schmidt playing short, but he's struggling and we need to get a guy, unless it's a situation like that. The spots I could see would be like a Willy Adames if Ahmed falls off, or the outfield just never quite like gives you the production, especially in right field. We never quite get that production we're hoping. And if the White Sox, who are like 3 and a lot right now on the season, decide, okay, you know what, we're going to go get a king's ransom for Luis Robert Jr., who, mind everyone, has 3.5 more years under contract. 2 are team options, but and all of them are like relatively reasonable price wise. I think it's like 15 million and then like 20 and 20. That's a guy that you could just empty the cupboard for, and he's got his injury issues. So do a lot of guys, but like to me, like I just don't know what's out there, and I don't know what's out there that's going to be much better than what they currently have. Like that's the hard part. The pitching's really solid. It's Farhan. The answer to this question is going to be like two bullpen guys that someone was trying to dump off their 40 man. Like that's going to be the moves they make, or a utility guy that Donnie Walton's cousin that they're going to end up trading for. Like it's going to be something like that is the reality. But I don't know. Like that's kind of when I look at the trade deadline, like and it's so far out, it's so hard to project. I mean, I could
Yeah.
honestly too, like, let's say if a guy like Yaz goes down to an injury or someone like that, and or Ahmed, and they get a significant amount of time to a young player, whether it's Matos, Ramos, Schmidt, Luciano, and one of these guys comes up and does really well because, Farhan is kind of allergic to giving leaps of faith. Like, it's got to be like, oh, you're going to get your opportunity and you better rake when you do, or I'm going to I'll just send you right back down.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to call them a seller, but like I could see them, if one of these guys gets an opportunity and runs with it, like I could then see them not necessarily selling, but moving a guy if they're healthy enough to move, but like moving a guy to like create the space for them at that point. Like it's so much up in the air between now and then on what they
Yeah.
could do.
100%. Like you said, you mentioned three names that I would love to target if,
Mhm.
I was playing MLB The Show. Willie Adames, Luis Robert, and Pete Alonso. And my thing is, it depends on how quickly they want to bring up Bryce Eldridge. I'm a big fan of
Mhm.
Eldridge. I think he's going to be a everyday first baseman. And if you envision him coming up as early as next season, I don't see the need to make a move for a first baseman at this time.
Yeah.
And yes, you can talk about the flayed platoon at first, but in an ideal world, you have an everyday first baseman. And I think if it was me,
Yeah.
I'd dump Slater. I would, if
I
I'm
agree
going to
with you.
focus on just first base, I would dump Slater. I would make an offer for Alonso. He's a free agent after the season.
Hmm.
If New York falls out of contention and they want to, get
Yeah.
something for him, if you make a move for Alonso for a playoff push, have him as the everyday first baseman, slide Wade into your right fielding starting job, move Yaz to the fourth outfielder, dump Slater. Like that would be
Yeah.
something ideal I would do at that case. If you want to keep the flayed platoon at first and you want to beef up right field, like you said, if you can somehow give a king's ransom to make a move for Luis Robert, an outfield of
Hmm.
Conforto, Lee, and Robert, that is nasty. And
Yeah.
especially like you said, with 3 years left on Robert's deal, you can go into next offseason with, Robert and Lee as your starting
Yeah.
outfielders. And then you got options to play at one of the
Yeah.
corner outfield positions. That's a dream scenario. And same thing, if Ahmed falls off a cliff and Luciano isn't showing much, make a move for Adames, throw him at short.
Yeah.
Again, you've got a pretty nasty infield. So I mean, there's options, and I think it all just
Yeah.
depends on how the season progresses up until July, and obviously barring any injuries.
Yeah. I mean, I look at a guy like Robert and I'm like, that's the kind of guy that might cost you, Rainer Arias or possibly an Eldridge and it's hard because like the reality is, like I've always said, when you go try and trade for a guy like him, if it's not a tough pill to swallow, then you clearly did not give up enough. Like you're not going to get that guy for, I always see the float, they're like, just give them, back when they had Bart, it was like, give them Bart, Ramos, and, you know, one, and then it's like whiz and hunt. Like it's one good prospect. And then like these, like, it's like, no, you're probably going to have to give up like Kyle Harrison and Arias or Eldridge and
Yeah,
like another big time arm, like a Hayden Birdsong or something. Like you're going to be giving up like top 100 prospects, and like you're going to feel like it hurt when you sent that package. Like, but then hopefully he shows up and he's a number 3 hitter and a Gold Glove outfielder, which he's been. And is this you just go, okay, cool, we'll live with it. Whatever they end up
yeah,
doing, like we got him for a long time,
yeah.
So that would be the dream. I mean, that's my dream target. I don't
Same.
think it's probably going to happen, but hey, we're dreamers out here.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but
for sure. Let us dream a little bit.
yeah. So we'll segue. So we did the biggest surprises, and then I know we have another question in here somewhere, but um, which players have been your biggest disappointment? And we'll make it easy, and we won't count Tom Murphy on this one. I think we all know we're on Tom Murphy and Austin Slater.
Yeah,
Like we'll,
yeah.
we'll take those two out. They've been that bad.
Everyone knows my opinion on power hitting catcher Tom Murphy and
Yeah.
better than Mookie Austin Slater. Shouts out Larry. Um,
Yep.
but just looking across the board, the biggest disappointments that I see, I mean, obviously got to go Blake Snell, and I understand I understand to an extent the reason for him having a disappointing start. He did himself no favors by, allowing the Boris negotiations to go on through spring. I think he could have definitely used the spring. I mean, you got to understand he's acclimating to a new team. He
Yeah.
he got what was it? A couple innings against some lower level minor leaguers, and then was
Yeah,
thrusted into a
in
starting
spring training
position.
too, not even like real live action.
Yeah, so it's like I wouldn't call Snell a bust and a disappointment yet. He notoriously starts slow. Last season, his
Mhm.
April was like 0 for 4 with a 5.85 ERA, and he went on to win the Cy Young Award. So he's going to start a little bit slow, but I think nobody expected him to have a 13 plus
Yeah.
ERA.
And he's already
So
hurt,
he
which
and yeah, he's already hurt, which we discussed, and I'd like to see Mason Black
yeah.
get a shot, but.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been one of the disappointments as far as starting pitchers is concerned. And then when you look at the offensive side, I got to look at Jorge Soler. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's got 4 home runs, 6 RBIs, and he's batting just a hair over 200. You know what you're going to get with Soler. He's a very, very streaky hitter. He reminds me a
Yeah.
lot of Brandon Belt with his streakiness.
Yeah.
But when he's on, he's got the power potential to hit 30, 40 bombs.
Yeah.
And you're going to get them in a snowball effect. You'll
Yeah.
go 2, 3 weeks and he'll give you 6, 7 bombs with ease. But then you'll have stretches where, he's going to hit around 100, 150, and you won't get any bombs for a couple weeks. So it's like the Giants knew what they were getting when they signed Jorge Soler. And I think fans expect a little bit more. But my best piece of advice is just be patient. We've seen this
Yeah.
guy over the years, and what he can do when he's locked in and when he's hot.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think excluding the garbage duo of Slater and Murphy, if you're looking at it from this perspective thus far, who's been disappointing, I'd say those are the two disappointments I've seen so far.
Yeah. So yeah, Snell's definitely an easy answer. I mean, but I like you said, I think he gets going at some point. Like I'm not gonna, the biggest thing negative for him on top of the whole like not signing until late in spring training and whatnot, to me is you look at how Arizona handled Montgomery and then how the Giants handled Snell. Montgomery went down to AAA and made 2 starts, which it's only 2 starts, but it's like that's still 2 starts against live hitters in AAA that he got. That didn't mean anything really for him as far as no one cares what he did numbers wise. I remember watching, I think it was Luciano crushed one off the wall off of him in Reno, but it's like, no one cares. Like he's out there just working his different. He's doing his spring training in April in AAA, and the Giants rushed Snell right up to the majors, and it's very clear that he missed that time. Soler, like you said, he'll get going. It's like he's one of those guys that he's gonna hit like 6 home runs in a 2-week span, and we're all gonna be like, "Oh my god!" like Belt used to do. Like, this is the best hitter on the planet, and then he gets cold again, and you're like, "Oh, never mind." And the one other guy I'd probably add in would be like, not cheating with the Slaz duo or anything, but like probably Flores. He's had some big knocks, so I'll give him some credit there. But as a whole, there's been 26 games of the year. He's got no homers. He's had like 0 power output, and he's a guy that historically has been at least a 15 to 20 home run guy. Like there's usually something there, and he's had none of it so far. And maybe he gets going. Maybe he goes on one of his runs like he did last year, where he just carries the offense.
Yeah.
But and then. Again, I guess I'll cheat a little more, and I'd say the bullpen as a whole, has disappointed. This was a big strength of the team for years, and I do think they'll figure it out at some point. But as a whole, like the Rogers brothers, although I looked up and Tyler Rogers has only got like a 2.80 ERA somehow, and I'm like, doesn't feel like it feels like it's about 8, but. But like the Rogers twins are kind of struggling, and Ryan Walker was kind of in a funk for a couple outings. And it feels like there's always one guy, like every day, there's always one guy in the pen that just doesn't have it. And it's felt like that and so overall, like maybe their overall numbers aren't terrible, but I don't know. Like that's kind of the only one I would probably cheat on.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you. And looking at the team as a whole, it's like if we mentioned this early in our conversation, if they can get, you know, everything clicking at once, they're a dangerous team. And I don't
100%.
think there's any question about that with the potential of the starting pitching, with the power potential, the offensive potential, the defensive potential, and the bullpen potential. If all four metrics can live up to their potential, it's a playoff team, and it's a team that can make
Yeah.
a deep playoff push. It's just fixing those little fundamentals, those little miscues, and just being on the same page collectively as a team, which I think that'll come as the chemistry develops. You have to remember half of the starting lineup is new players, half the
Oh
rotation are
yeah.
new players. So it's like a lot of these guys are still building that chemistry. And I think as the season progresses and once those start clicking and, you know, pray they all stay healthy, this is a team that can be very dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just got to get there. I mean, a lot of teams have shown that, the Diamondbacks last season. And I think if the offense can just get a little more consistency and steadiness, give you, regularly give you 3-4 plus runs a night. Like not this, hey, we gave you 11 in the second game, but we scored none. We got shut out in the first and 2 in the last, of a series. And it's like, great. We went 1-3 at the end of the day, even though we outscored the team in the series, like they did in Tampa, for instance. But it's there, if they can just consistently get a few more runs like across a night, and that means, like you said, doing the little things. Like for the love of God, when you load the bases with no outs, can we get at least a run? Like
Yeah.
a
Just
run. That's all we're asking for. Like one guy get come through, and if they can just do that, like if you can do that, especially in like October, and get an offense that can give you 4 a night, like the pitching and the defense and everything, like the potential on that side, like, yeah, you put pressure on them overall, but like the potential on that side is to be elite.
Yeah, and that's how we won back in 2010, 2012, 2014. It wasn't offense. We were putting 3, 4, maybe 5 runs a night if we were lucky. But what it came down to is, okay, you give your pitcher an opportunity to win. You give him a lead. All he's got to do is his job, and good things are going to happen because you got a defense behind him that can back it up. And I think that's the potential that this team has. It's just those little things, like you said. It's inexcusable for you to approach in a bat with that Justin Veal mindset of, hey, let me try to draw a count with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
Like, no, find a pitch you can drive and just hit it far enough to drive in a run.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the old school approach that I have that I think they need to focus on.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of situations where, and I'm not one sitting here going like, hey, throw 2 outs away for a run or anything, but there've been a bunch of times where defenses, like you look at where the defense is lined up and they got the middle infielder, like everyone's back, and it's like, bro, you could ground into a double play right now and score a run. Like you don't even have to, hit a sac fly in this situation, and they don't. And I, like, as you brought up with the Veely, mindset and approach, working the count is great. No, like, working the count got them the bases loaded on Manaea, or put Manaea in trouble all day yesterday. But when you're working the count and you're seeing more pitches, you're also seeing more 2-strike counts, which means you're more likely to strike out, which is exactly what the pitcher is trying to get. And it's like, okay, so you're going to play into their hands. Like,
exactly.
Go up there, get a first pitch to hit, and just barrel it. It doesn't really matter where. Like, if you hit a line drive and it hits glove, like, fine, whatever. We live with that. Like, you hit it hard. I'm not going to bag on a guy if that's what they do.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, put it in play and try and make something good happen. And it's just too many little things they don't
What's
do
that?
Consistently enough.
What's that saying that Kruko would always had? It's say good things happen when you put the ball in play. It's true. It's true. And I feel like it's an old school mindset, and you got a new school hitting coach with an old school manager, and it's just I think these things will work themselves out. It's just us as fans, we can point it out and express our displeasure.
Yeah, it's what we do.
That's why VR pays me the big bucks. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, Burl does as like the season goes and next season comes. Like it's like we said, he's trying to undo or
Yeah,
like build off of. I guess maybe I don't know what he works with them. So I mean I don't know what we want to do. Oh,
yeah.
Derek, we have one more. Derek asked, and then the one from Kay.
I feel like we kind of touched on K's. I don't think we shouted him out, but
Lee and Lamont
yeah,
playing and starting against left-handed pitching. Ramos getting called up. Yeah, we talked about the last part of that. I mean, yeah, Lee should be playing every day. If you want to give him like
100%.
one day off every 2 weeks, fine. Like I could probably live with that. I know they're trying to keep him on his Korean schedule a little bit, where he plays 6 days a week. But
Hmm.
I think Lamont. I've said it in the past. I think Lamont has earned the opportunity to face more left-handed pitching, but it's kind of one of those. We got role players in their roles, and when you take them out of their roles, do they get exposed?
Yeah.
There's a
Agreed.
reason why Austin Slater doesn't get to face right-handed pitching
Amen to that.
because he can't even hit a position player who's a right-handed pitcher. So slow pitch softballing the ball in. And then Derek asked one. Let me just pull up that. Do we really think after the first month Melvin has enough autonomy with roster? If he does, I'm concerned. If not, what's the point of switching managers? This team for as much change and talk of younger, more athletic players. Same as a lot of last year's pathetic runners with scoring position results, base running blunders, weird lineups, expecting different results from previous underwhelming meh veterans. Yeah, I mean that pretty
Yeah.
much sums it up. It's,
It sums it up. I think Melvin has a lot more say
Mhm.
as far as like he likes to roll out a consistent lineup, which is something that we didn't see
Yeah.
that much last year. Last year was purely, analytics based, and that's Kapler and Minnie Correa for you. They were
Mhm.
all, we're gonna go out and we're gonna adjust
Yeah.
this lineup every day, and we're gonna play guys out of position, and we're gonna do these defensive switches, and we're gonna da 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 da, like just trying to do everything by the computer. And I know it's a joke a lot of us say, but it's true. They were a very, very analytical team. And I think this year is a mesh in between. You see Melvin trying to roll out the same lineup consistently against righties for sure. And when a lefty
Yeah.
is pitching on the mound, you're starting to see him trying to implement more Austin Slater, more Wilmer Flores, occasional power hitting catcher Tom Murphy. And I think a lot of that is kind of showing where the flaws on this team lie. And it all goes
Yeah.
back into one of my biggest issues, and it's Justin Veal or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And it's you have Pat Burrell, who's an old school hitting coach, and you got Justin Veal, who's a new school hitting coach, and they're trying to mesh both of those styles between analytics and fundamentals into one offensive lineup. And I think that has a lot to do with the inconsistency that you're seeing on there as far as runners in scoring position,
Yeah.
lineups, et cetera, et cetera. So I think just in general, these things will work themselves out as the season progresses. Because not only is it a new chemistry with players, it's a chemistry with coaches. It's a
Yeah.
whole new coaching staff that was brought in. So,
Oh yeah.
I think these teams
They only
or this
retained
team is
what,
still
like four coaches, five coaches? I guess if
yeah,
we're counting like
exactly.
assistants and things like that, because like Listen Akin and a couple, Vili and Guerrero, and then
And I
Hallberg.
think yeah, and I think as the season goes on and
Yeah.
as the team in general, coaches, players, etc., learn how they mesh together and develop that
Yeah.
chemistry, you'll see a lot of those issues that Derek pointed out fix themselves. Um,
Yeah.
all I can say is I'm a lot happier to see Bob Melvin out there and Matt
Me too.
Williams
Bob Melvin going
over.
after a couple umpires early in the year.
Dude, I
I
pointed it
I
out in
was
the
like,
community.
it was just a beautiful sight to see him going off because it's like he's not quite like
Yeah,
Bochy fun. Like Bochy had a little bit of homegrown in him, where it was like he was
yeah,
always so calm, and it was like you could see the shade of red going up his face. But Melvin, like he gets a little fiery, and he has his guys' backs. And then the big Marine jumping in with him last week,
100%.
and with Williams going after Surewater. I mean, I love to see it.
Yeah, I
So
don't think you saw it when I posted in the community. Maybe you did. When I pointed out the fact that in 3 years with the Giants, Kapler was ejected, what, 3, 4 times total? And in
Buffalo
this
hits the
first
gym.
month, Yeah, in this first month, Melvin's already been ejected twice, and that shows a difference as far as setting up your players. And with Kapler, he didn't get ejected for the first time until I think it was his 387th game with the Giants, and we're what 20 something games into the season, and Melvin's already been
Yeah.
ejected twice. So I think that's a huge dynamic because as a player, you want a coach that has your back, you want a
Yeah.
manager that has your back, and the fact that that Melvin's already showing up and standing up for his team, I think that speaks volumes as far as what he thinks
Yeah.
of them.
And you know, he's not Aaron Boone out there. Like he's not going after umpires for every little stupid thing. Like he's not like he stands up for his guys when they like clearly got the short end. Like both times he got ejected, they were blatantly horrible calls. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna let my guy get tossed. Like I'm gonna come out there and do it. And I mean, it I do appreciate that. Like that's that's what we want. We don't need a guy that's a little whiny manager in the dugout that's going to complain about everything. Like we want a guy that's going to do it for the right reasons. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we touched on a lot. We had a good talk though.
Yeah. I get to go run off to work and, we'll get this out, but yeah, I, appreciate Dan joining on here. I definitely want to do this. Like you are welcome on the show, like anytime. Obviously this was a lot longer episode than I normally put out. Hopefully the people enjoy this. Wanted to change it up and do something different for the off day. And, yeah, so like the video, subscribe to the channel for those of you that enjoyed this, but you got anything you want to add?
This felt like a podcast and it was a lot of fun. So thank you for having me, man. It's been great becoming friends over the last few months, and now
Yeah.
being able to hop on the show is awesome. And last thing I got to say is even your Dynasty show is a lot better than McCovey Chronicles. So
I appreciate it, dude. All right, everybody. We'll catch you guys next time. And yeah, see ya.